There's a moment when everything changes, when someone who was never meant to be in the spotlight steps forward, and the world has no choice but to watch. What happens next? Let us know in the comments section below. The room went silent the second Rhea stepped inside. Not just quiet, silent, like the air itself had been sucked out. Conversations that had been bubbling over glasses of expensive champagne froze mid-sentence. Eyes flicked toward her, then to each other, then back again. She felt it, that weight, that slow, creeping realization that she wasn't supposed to be here. But she already knew that. Rhea squared her shoulders and kept walking, pretending she didn't notice the way people shifted, the barely concealed smirks, the half-hidden sneers. She could hear their thoughts, as if they were whispering them straight into her ear. Who let her in? Did she take a wrong turn? This isn't her place. She ignored them. If she let them see her hesitate, even for a second, they'd win. And she couldn't afford that, not tonight, not when she was this close. Her grip tightened around the strap of her bag as she scanned the room. The venue was everything she imagined. Golden chandeliers, velvet drapes, a polished stage that gleamed under the soft glow of the spotlights. It wasn't just a stage, it was a throne. A place where voices commanded attention, where names were immortalized. A place she had no business being. But that wasn't her problem. She caught sight of Jasmine near the bar, waving her over with an urgency that made Rhea's pulse jump. Jasmine always had that kind of energy, like she existed at twice the speed of everyone else. She was dressed for the part, all confidence and sparkle, as if she belonged in this room in a way Rhea never could. "Tell me you're not chickening out," Jasmine said as soon as Rhea was close enough to hear. Rhea scoffed. "You think I came all this way just to turn around?" Jasmine grinned. "Good, because once you're up there, it's over for them." That was the plan, that was the dream. Except dreams weren't so easy to make real. "Daniel's here," Jasmine added, her voice dropping slightly. Rhea's stomach clenched. Daniel Whitmore, the man who held all the power in this room. He ran the show, literally. If he didn't approve of you, you didn't exist. He had built a reputation on making and breaking careers. And he made it clear long ago, he didn't see Rhea as someone worth making. Jasmine must have noticed the shift in her expression because she nudged her. "Ignore him. Tonight isn't about him. It's about you." Rhea wished she could believe that. A sudden burst of laughter came from a nearby group. Rhea didn't have to turn to know who it was. The usual crowd. The ones who lived in this world effortlessly, who never had to fight for a seat at the table. One of them, a blonde girl draped in diamonds, leaned toward her friend and whispered something, not even bothering to lower her voice. The friend snickered, eyes flicking to Rhea before quickly looking away. Rhea forced herself to breathe, forced herself to keep her face neutral, even when everything inside her was burning. She should have left, should have turned around the second she stepped inside. But she didn't, because leaving meant they were right, and she wasn't about to give them that satisfaction. Jasmine checked her phone. "All right, we've got about 20 minutes before it starts. We need to—" "Is this a joke?" The voice cut through the room like a knife. Rhea turned, and there he was. Daniel Whitmore, in his signature black suit, looking at her like she was an ink stain on his crisp white collar. Jasmine was already stepping forward, ready to fight. "Daniel?" "No," he said sharply, his eyes never leaving Rhea. "You? Here?" Rhea held his gaze, refusing to flinch. "This isn't your place," he said, voice low and full of certainty. "And you know it." She had a choice. She could agree. She could let him be right. Or she could prove him wrong. Rhea exhaled slowly. Then she adjusted her bag on her shoulder and smiled. "We'll see." Rhea could still feel Daniel's words clinging to her skin like smoke, lingering even as he turned his back on her. The conversation was over as far as he was concerned. She was dismissed, overlooked, unwanted. But Rhea wasn't leaving. She watched as Daniel strode toward the front of the room where the evening's performers were already gathered near the stage. These were the ones he had chosen, the ones who had been invited, the ones who belonged. Jasmine grabbed her wrist. "Don't listen to him." Rhea swallowed, hard. "I'm not." Jasmine studied her. "You sure?" "No." But she nodded anyway. Jasmine exhaled through her nose. "Good. Because if you're going to do this, you need to lock in right now. No second-guessing, no hesitating. You go up there like you were meant to be there, or you don't go up at all." Rhea's throat felt tight. Jasmine was right. There couldn't be any cracks, not a single one. Rhea squared her shoulders, forcing herself to ignore the murmurs, the pointed glances, the quiet disbelief written across the faces around her. She had spent her entire life walking into rooms where she wasn't expected, where she was barely tolerated. She knew how to survive that. The real question was, could she do more than just survive? "Come on," Jasmine said, tugging her toward the lineup. The performers were huddled near the stage, waiting for their names to be called. Some of them were running through their lyrics under their breath, others checking their phones, pretending not to notice her. The host of the night, a slick-talking man in a designer's suit, stood at the front of the stage with his clipboard, scanning the lineup. His eyes landed on her. "You lost?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Rhea shook her head. "No." His gaze flicked over to Daniel, as if waiting for an answer that would confirm what he already suspected. "She's not on the list," Daniel said flatly. The host gave a slow, deliberate nod. "That's what I thought." He turned back to her. "Sorry, sweetheart, we're booked." Jasmine stepped forward. "Put her on." The host barely glanced at her. "Not how it works." Jasmine crossed her arms. "So how does it work, exactly? Because I've seen people get added last minute. I've seen people perform without even signing up. So if it's not about that, then what is it?" The host's mouth twisted. "Listen, I don't know what you're trying to pull here, but it's not happening. We have a process. If she wanted in, she should have signed up like everyone else." Jasmine scoffed. "And we both know why that wouldn't have worked." The tension was thick, stretching between them like a frayed rope, ready to snap. Rhea felt her pulse hammering in her ears. She could feel the weight of every eye in the room pressing down on her, waiting for her to back down. Daniel smirked. "See? Even your friend gets it. This isn't for you." The words scraped against her ribs. Jasmine turned to her. "Say something." Rhea lifted her chin. "Give me a mic." The room went still. Daniel let out a sharp breath of laughter. "You can't be serious." She was. She didn't blink. Didn't move. The host looked between her and Daniel, waiting for the final verdict. Daniel's jaw clenched. "She's not on the list." Rhea turned to the host. "Let me ask you something," she said. "If I walk up on that stage right now and start singing, what's going to happen?" The host blinked. "What?" "You heard me," she said. "Are you going to have security drag me off? Is someone going to cut the mic, or are you just hoping I won't actually do it?" Jasmine grinned. "I like where this is going." The host hesitated. I'm just asking," Rhea said, voice even. "Because if the worst that can happen is Daniel getting mad, then I don't see why I shouldn't take my shot." The host opened his mouth, then closed it. Daniel's smirk was gone. Rhea turned, stepping away from the group, her heart slamming against her ribs. And then, before she could talk herself out of it, she walked straight to the stage. The shift in the room was immediate. Gasps, murmurs. A few people stiffened, eyes wide, as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Someone near the back let out a low whistle. Rhea tuned it all out. The mic was right there, waiting. The lights were hotter than she expected, burning against her skin, making her feel both small and enormous all at once. A sharp sound broke the silence, Daniel's voice cutting through the thick air. Don't. Rhea's hand hovered over the mic. Daniel stepped forward. You really want to do this? She met his gaze. And then she grabbed the mic. There was a half-second of stunned silence. Then, chaos. A mix of laughter, disbelief, scattered applause from people who were clearly just here for the drama. The host ran a hand down his face like he was having an out-of-body experience. Jasmine, bless her soul, was cackling. Daniel took another step forward, shaking his head. This is a mistake. Maybe. Maybe it was reckless. Maybe it was career suicide before she even had a career. Or maybe it was the beginning of everything. She lifted the mic to her lips and started to sing. The first note left her lips, and the room shifted. At first it was just shock. A stunned, breathless kind of silence, like the crowd couldn't quite believe what was happening. Rhea could feel it, the collective inhale, the weight of dozens of eyes snapping to her, waiting for her to fail. But she wouldn't. Her voice cut through the air, steady, unwavering. It was rich, full, commanding in a way even she hadn't expected. The acoustics of the room wrapped around her, amplifying every note, sending it bouncing off the velvet walls and crystal chandeliers. And in that moment, everything changed. She saw it in their faces, the slow shift from skepticism to something else, something quieter. Even the ones who had been smirking, whispering, watching her with thinly veiled amusement, were now frozen. She had their attention, but more importantly, she had Daniel's. He was standing by the side of the stage, arms crossed, jaw tight, watching her like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't add up. Good. Let him try. Rhea poured herself into the song, letting the words settle into her chest, letting them bloom. It wasn't just about proving a point anymore, it was about claiming something. She had been fighting to belong in this world for so long, pushing against locked doors, knocking only to be ignored. But here, now, in this moment, she didn't need permission. She took it. Somewhere near the back, someone started clapping, a slow, deliberate beat against the tension. Then another, and another. A ripple of sound spread through the audience, breaking the stiffness, replacing it with something else. Energy. Jasmine was grinning like a madwoman, nudging the person next to her who had started nodding along, tapping their fingers against their thigh. The rhythm of the room had changed. Rhea felt it under her skin. She owned this now. She closed her eyes for half a second, just enough to let herself sink into the music. She wasn't thinking about Daniel anymore, or the list she wasn't on, or the people who wanted her gone before she even started. She was here, and that was enough. The song built, her voice soaring higher, finding the perfect balance between power and restraint. It was effortless and deliberate at the same time. When she hit the final note, holding it steady, the air seemed to vibrate around her. Then, silence. A beat. Two. Then, the room exploded. Applause. Cheers. Some people were on their feet, clapping so hard it shook the floor. Rhea let out a breath, her fingers tightening around the mic as she took it all in. She had done it. She had really done it. Jasmine was practically jumping up and down, her face glowing with pride. Even the host, the man who had dismissed her without a second thought, was staring at her like he had just watched someone pull off a magic trick. And Daniel was furious. She could see it in the way his hands clenched at his sides, the sharp cut of his jaw, the rigid set of his shoulders. He hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected her. Let him stew in it. Rhea turned toward the crowd, offering a small nod before stepping away from the mic, her pulse still hammering. She had no idea what was going to happen next, but whatever it was, she was ready for it. The echoes of applause still rang in Rhea's ears as she stepped off the stage. She felt lightheaded, not from nerves but from the sheer rush of it all, the way the room had shifted, the way she had commanded it. For the first time in her life, she hadn't been fighting for space. She owned it. Jasmine was the first to reach her, practically tackling her into a hug. "That was insane," Jasmine said breathlessly. "Like, actually insane. Did you see them? They lost their minds." Rhea let out a half laugh, half sob, the adrenaline still buzzing in her veins. "You what?" Jasmine prompted, gripping her by the shoulders. "You knew you could do this, right?" Rhea blinked, trying to catch up with herself. The truth was, no, she hadn't known. She had hoped. She had fought. But now, standing here, looking at the energy still crackling through the crowd, she realized this wasn't just hope anymore. This was real. Before she could answer, movement to her right caught her eye. Daniel. His expression was unreadable as he made his way toward her, slow and deliberate. The crowd still hadn't settled. People were talking, murmuring, pointing. She wasn't sure if they were watching her or him. Maybe both. When he finally stopped in front of her, the weight of his presence was suffocating. She braced herself for whatever was coming next. "Well," he said, voice unreadable, "that was a hell of a stunt." Rhea crossed her arms. "It wasn't a stunt. It was a performance." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "You weren't supposed to." "No," she cut in, not letting him finish. "I wasn't allowed to. That's different." His eyes flickered with something. Annoyance? Frustration? Something else entirely? He exhaled sharply. "You put me in a difficult position." She shrugged. "Then move." A flicker of something close to amusement, crossed his face. For the first time, Daniel really looked at her, not as an intruder, not as a problem to be handled, but as something else. She had forced him to see her, and for Daniel Whitmore, that was no small thing. A long silence stretched between them before he finally spoke. "You belong up there." Rhea stiffened, as if she hadn't heard him right. "What?" Daniel glanced toward the stage, where the mic still stood, gleaming under the lights. "You belong up there," he repeated. "I didn't see it before, but I see it now." The words knocked the air from her lungs. She had spent so long proving herself, so long forcing her way through doors that were slammed in her face, that hearing those words, actually hearing them, felt surreal. She didn't know how to respond. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "I should have put you on that list." Jasmine snorted. "Now you get it?" Daniel ignored her. His gaze stayed locked on Rhea. There was no apology. That wasn't his style. But this was as close as it was going to get. Rhea let out a slow breath. "So what now?" Daniel tilted his head. "Now?" He gestured toward the crowd, where people were still talking, still buzzing, still reacting to her. "Now you come back next week, on the list." Rhea's heart nearly stopped. "You're serious?" Daniel smirked. "Wouldn't say it if I wasn't." A hand gripped hers, Jasmine again, squeezing so hard it almost hurt. Rhea felt her throat tighten, her mind struggling to catch up with what had just happened. She had walked into this place as an outsider. Now she wasn't just inside. She was wanted. She swallowed hard, then lifted her chin. "All right," she said. "I'll be back." Daniel nodded once before turning away, already lost in conversation with someone else, already moving on. But it didn't matter, because the moment was hers. Jasmine let out a whoop and grabbed both of Rhea's hands, spinning her in a ridiculous circle. "You did that," she cried. "You freaking did that." Rhea laughed, dizzy from the movement, from the adrenaline, from the sheer impossibility of it all. She had done it. She had walked into a room that wasn't hers. And she had taken it. Not because they let her, because she refused to let them stop her. And now she wasn't leaving. She had a stage. She had a spotlight. And next time, They'd be waiting for her.